recording. And did you see what I just posted over on Facebook there?
No, which post?
It was the most ridiculous, goofy picture of me with the phrase, "I help coaches overcome their limiting beliefs around creating breakthroughs and achieving success using online tools," is what I would have said if I used coaching jargon. And so I thought that would be perhaps a little insensitive, but ultimately it sort of brings home the point that I want to make in today's conversation, which is really that as a coach or a business owner in any regard, whether you're in the corporate world where there's plenty of jargon, in the medical world where there's plenty of jargon, all of our industries, we know the language of our worlds really, really well. And sometimes that language is used really effectively to market and build a business. And my argument today is that for coaches who use a lot of this language, it's actually preventing them from being successful at building their business, because there's very often, I'm going to use jargon, a disconnect between what they're saying and the people they're trying to help and trying to reach. And so that's what I wanted to sort of explore a little bit today. And John, you're always a great insight and have a experience and perspective on these things that I thought I should invite you to come join in the conversation. And so anybody else who's out there, whether you're watching through the 22 Social app or here on Blab and want to join in, please by all means do. That's why I wanted to try this out on Blab, to see if we could get some participants and some feedback on the.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think coaching is one of those misused terms a lot of times.
Okay.
Like, so many people call themselves coaches, but they're not really. Well, I don't know if it's a term that should be used the way they freely use it, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't. Give me a little bit more detail on what you're trying to say.
Well, because many of my friends are certified coaches, and they said that, hey, we're certified as coaches. Are you certified as a coach? I said, well, I don't use the word coach usually with anything I do. I usually talk about the coaching type of work that I do. I use the term focused consulting. Yep. Because I come more from an engineering and consulting background. So I like that term. I'm not a certified coach. I fully admit it. And, I do think that coaching kind of gets used too frequently, especially by people who really aren't certified as coaches per se.
Yeah, and I agree and I disagree. I don't use the term coach. And in fact, when I go to a couple of local coaching meetups and groups here in town, everybody's a coach in the room, and they say, I coach on this topic, I coach on that topic, and they use a lot of the jargon that I don't like. And I very often will stand up and I'll say, all right, and I'm not a coach. First of all, it helps people remember me because I stand out a little bit, but I don't feel comfortable with calling myself a coach either.
I don't either.
Partially because there's a lack of formal training or certification. And when you and I work with a client, we're very often going through a similar process as somebody who is a certified coach, whether it's a business coach or a life coach of some sort, right, or a marketing coach or a confidence coach. I mean, you work in an area where you're building somebody's confidence up before they get on camera sometimes, right? You're helping them through that same sort of process. So
absolutely.
Yeah, we're doing coaching, but so many people do coaching. And in fact, there's an entire community around people who practice coaching in the workplace, right? Our mentors are helping their staff or their team, and they call that coaching as well. So I sort of agree and I sort of disagree with you on the subject. But yeah,
we can agree to disagree. But no, it's an interesting thing. We talk about it quite frequently, and so I said, it's an interesting thing to bring up today because I just wonder what your thoughts are. Yeah. So I know
we have we have a huge concentration of people who call them coaches here in the Pacific Northwest, and I don't know if it's just that I've lived here so long that and I'm aware of it, that I'm not aware that they exist anywhere else. But I think that it's an easy title for somebody to assume
Mm-hmm.
and start to build a business around. And well, no, it's not easy to build a business around. That's part of that's part of today's conversation.
Well, right.
But it's easy for you to leave whatever world you're in or be in whatever world you're in. Let's say you're a corporate executive or something, and you want to transition to solo entrepreneurship. Well, very often becoming an expert mentor sort of person in your industry is a logical step.
Yeah, but I would say too that a lot of times it may be more appropriate to use a term other than coach, because obviously we're familiar with that. Yeah. But it may not necessarily always be the best term to describe
that. I do agree with
what you're doing if you're starting out in a new business like that.
Yeah. Welcome, Leah. Thanks for joining us. So we're talking about the idea of the language that we use in our businesses, in our professions, and how almost every industry has some sort of jargon related to it. Thanks for all those props, by the way.
Doing them both at the same time.
I don't know how you're doing that, actually. That's pretty impressive.
I like it.
But the question here is, how do you effectively sidestep all of that language that you're so used to? Oh, and you've evened us up too. I like the number. I wonder if there's a significance to 112. Who knows?
That's it. I'm not going to talk until you blow me up.
Right. No, so how do you? We're used to this sort of language in any of our worlds, whatever world we happen to be in. Hey, Sabira, welcome. And having a way to communicate what we want to communicate within our work, I think, is a separate issue from communicating what we want to the public, to prospects who are outside of our world and outside of our work. And this is something that I think you and I see a lot in discussions around copywriting, around sales pages, and all of that stuff. But it's not an obvious or natural subject matter for most people in most industries to have to deal with, and that's why I wanted to have like a little intervention with the coaching world that I am.
Should we get a group together?
What I was going to say that I'm interfacing with right now, right? Corporate jargon there, because I hear so much of this language that I have to sort of stop. I have to think about what that means. And the types of the types of words that I'm talking about are kind of the ones that I mocked earlier on when I said, limiting beliefs and breakthroughs and achieving success. This is all stuff that, we all understand what it means, but in terms of presenting an opportunity for a prospect to come and work with you as a coach, it's kind of tough to say, all right, well, how does, I guess I'm looking to achieve success, or yeah, I suppose I do have limiting beliefs. I just have to sort of figure out what that phrase means. Hold on a second. And because there's that sort of disconnect, it can be more challenging for coaches to make their case with a prospective client in the first place. And so replacing that language with some more practical, more tangential, accessible language when they're in the phase of developing relationships with clients, the client attraction process, I think is really important to sort of step back from the situation and think about. I see a lot of head nodding there.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
No, it's like anything, we come up with our own little terms to make us sound better and more exciting, right?
And that's actually, I mean, that may actually be a problem, right? It makes us sound impressive, but maybe it doesn't make us sound as accessible or as,
down to earth as we'd like. Yeah. It goes along with accessible. Yeah.
And so the idea is how do you replace this language? What do you replace it with? And that's, I think that's something that we see a good bit of in the world of, sorry, I'm seeing some activity over here in the comments over on Facebook. in the world of copywriting, you've been you have experience with people in the copywriting world, and
I do.
And one of the things that I think you'll agree that you've encountered in the past is sort of understanding that ideal customer and their needs and their very specific situation, and changing the language, not about what you're doing or the highbrow terminology around it, but about their situation, their problem, and the types of words that they may be using, the thoughts that are sort of inside their head. What do you think about that in relation to the whole replacing the jargon issue?
Well, obviously, the more we use different jargon, the more we are likely to leave people out.
Ah, okay, that's a really solid point. I like that.
And so, you know,
Again, I love that.
Wow, man, they're all over this thing. But you see that a lot, you know, that and copywriters often talk about the fact that, you know, they want to relate to each person at their own level with, you know, whatever terminology that makes the most sense. And we always hear to describe everything that we do at a very lower level, or as if we're explaining it to a small child, right? In a lot of ways. So jargon can really leave people out.
Yeah. For settings. So I love that the small child thing, because I practice that all the time. Your kids are older than mine. I have a 6-year-old. Your kids are.
They got one over here behind me. A little bit of noise. So I'm trying to keep him down.
So clearly he's a teenager then.
He's 16.
Yeah, there we go.
My son. So.
And but we have experience, you know, talking to somebody who may not be familiar with the world that we're in, and we need to sort of. You said lower level. I that may sound a little pejorative, but you know, at a level that I like.
I'm thinking of a short 6-year-old child, so
yeah,
a little lower.
Right.
It's a little lower.
Yeah. So finding ways to open it up and make the language accessible to more people. But then you also said, you said something. I want to go back to this phrase that I heard you say in terms of leaving people out.
Yes.
Right. So the question I have about that is, very often I teach that you actually need to get very, very narrow and very focused. And so inherently you would be leaving people out because you're saying, I'm solving this specific problem, and therefore, you know, this is what I have to offer is not for you, you, and you. It's
not for everyone.
Right. Right. And so I think you do want to intentionally leave some people out, don't you?
Yeah, some people. But you may be leaving people you don't want to have left out by intentionally using different jargon.
Right. Okay.
So it's kind of like, you know, I come from an engineering background, so I could jargon you up all day long about different things that you would just have. Maybe you come right along, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But and I think that a lot of times, you know, that's something that does happen with, you know, different coaches, that they have that tendency to use terms that most people wouldn't understand, and they're pushing away people that, you know, may be able to utilize what they're teaching unintentionally. Right. And that's always the biggest problem with using jargon of any kind.
Right. I think that jargon has its place, because these words mean something in that profession. And so I think it's really where they get introduced, and that there's got to be a point in the process where you're educating people about this concept. Right. I think about, you know, you're talking about coach certification, and I think coaching probably was an offshoot back in, I think it was like in the late 70s, early 80s, was an offshoot of therapy, right? It was a different sort of direction of the same concept. And, you know, I think about the times that I've gone to see somebody in a therapy setting. I don't remember jargon. I remember first of all, they're not out marketing, you know, their businesses the way that coaches are.
No, it's not like they're talking to you like you're another psychiatrist or something.
Yeah.
You know, they're just trying to get at your issue.
Right. Whatever. And so I see that there's a point where in that conversation where they may have whether it's a therapist or coach, they may have an understanding of, well, okay, this is a typical case of, fill in the blank. And so they would reveal the concept and discuss it and maybe there is a term that they bring up, maybe not. But jargon can enter into a conversation later on, once you've gotten that client into your world, once you're working through their problem, and then you can introduce the concepts, use the terminology once you're in a working relationship.
Because then we know what it means.
we have some coaches out there lurking. I can see a few of you. So if you have any opinions on this or some some experience with this, please by all means jump on in. I'm eager to hear your perspective. So either from 22 Social if you're over on Facebook and you want to add something in the chat, or for those of you who are here on Blab, please by all means do jump in. So okay. I was. This is more anecdotal, but I was in this room the other night. I was presenting to some coaches, and as we went around, there were 26 people in the room, and I was fully aware this is a subject that's actually been very present in the work that I've been doing over the past several weeks. And I wanted to. I know how people introduce themselves in this group, right? So I sat there and I just ticked off on a piece of paper. Okay, how many times am I going to hear jargon in your introduction to what you do?
This one needs therapy.
Well, that's kind of one of the cool things about coach gatherings is that they love to coach each other too, which is great.
We often joke about that, because I have friends who are life coaches, and they said, one of the most common things, of course, in coaching is that there's only so many coaches that can coach each other. Mm-hmm. That makes perfect sense.
I was feeling like a light bulb joke coming on or something. No. Yeah.
No, very, very matter of fact. Very true.
Mm-hmm. So we went around the room, and of the 26 people, 19 of them used some sort of very specific language, talking about things from achieving success, overcoming barriers, realizing dreams, things like that were to some extent jargon, to some extent a little generic, and figuring out how to I was getting ready for a presentation, so I really wasn't in the a place where I wanted to sort of work through each of their elevator pitches, right? Or their 8-second introductions. But it almost felt to me like going to an event where I'm meeting financial planners, and they're all saying the same thing, which is you're a financial planner, right? You do that.
Buy low, sell high.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure that's what they say though, right? They talk about all the generic stuff, like making sure there's security, making sure your kids are able to pay for college, or all of that stuff, right? And how do you differentiate one from the other? And it feels like a combination of jargon, generic, and noise, right? Rather than focusing on, this is the problem I solve for this very specific type of individual.
Right. It would be better if they did more kind of case study things, sort of.
So what do you
using terms? Well, using terms like that, like obviously when you're introducing yourself, you've kind of got a short, finite time to do that. Sure. But it would be nice a lot of times when we talk to coaches that they talk in a language of, this is like somebody that I worked with, and I worked in this way and helped them with this issue, and they, got to this point with it.
Sure.
And that's not the way that we usually hear things. We usually hear things in kind of more generic terms, as opposed to what they've been able to really accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy in terms of introducing yourself anyway in public is to go out and give an example of a client you helped
whenever you can.
Yeah. If you have more than that 8 seconds allotted to you, I know some people who are in networking groups. There's this woman who runs an answering service and secretarial service, right? And or virtual secretarial service. And she talks about all of the types of client relationships that she has, and gives a different example almost every single time she's introducing herself at a networking group. And so it really helps those of us who are there to understand what she can do for people. And it's something I don't see a lot of coaches doing in their world. John, Subira, John.
Hi, Subira.
Hey, hello, how you guys doing?
Oh, great.
Good.
Thanks for joining us here with us.
Yeah.
So Subira, you want to introduce yourself?
No, I'm gonna put my foot in my mouth. You're coaching me, so when I have you coach me more, then absolutely.
Okay, so
I'm a life coach. I too
you were not on earlier when John and I had a little discussion about what it means to be a coach. And actually, although both of us go through very similar process as somebody who calls himself a coach, neither of us call ourselves coaches.
Yeah, I got you.
So earlier today, when you and I were on a call and you called me a coach, I cringed, didn't I?
You did. You said, "Don't call me that."
Guy who has diamond armor.
Don't call me that.
Right.
Yeah. So, for me, I'm actually a trained coach. I went to school for 4 years. And that term is really, honestly, it's bastardized.
It is.
Most people who I run into who call themselves coaches, and not to downplay anybody, what they went through. I can only talk about my experience.
Well, it's easy, right?
I know that in a weekend class or something you get online in a week or a month or something,
That's not been easy for me.
it's not the same as somebody who actually went to school for 4 years to study coaching. It's very, very different. So I was talking with another colleague who went through the same program I did, 4 years. And she said, I don't even call myself a coach anymore because people don't take me seriously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, for me, I went to school for a long time and paid a lot of money. And it was one of the toughest things I ever did in my life. So I'm not gonna throw away my all that hard work that I did. Instead, I'm gonna go out and take opportunities like this to let people know that there are coaches out there who dedicated many, many years of a study to the art of coaching, and it is indeed an art. So, the difference between a coach and a therapist and a mentor, those are three very different things. A coach is somebody who's going to get out on the field with you, just like if you had a basketball coach or a soccer coach. They're going to get in the trenches with you and not necessarily hold your hand, but they're going to be there every step of the way with you, step by step. Whereas a mentor, or let's talk about a consultant. I think, David, you would probably, and probably John, you probably would call yourself a consultant. That someone is going to sit down and hear what the problem is. Different than me, you're not going to necessarily be in the trenches with them, setting goals and in it with them. You're going to say, okay, this is the problem. Here's a solution. Here's your plan. Go implement it. So it's very, very different. A mentor, on the other hand, is going to say, yeah, I've been where you are. Here's my nuggets of wisdom. Good luck, Obi-Wan. I hope you get to the other side of the lake. So these are all very different art forms, professions. But a coach is definitely for somebody who wants somebody that's going. That's why I actually didn't put my baseball cap on purpose, but but it's very apropos now that I look at it. But a coach is that you call me if you want somebody who's calling you at 5 a.m. because you need to get up and write your content or something, and you said 5 a.m. is the time I can do that before work. I'm gonna set my alarm and I'm going to get up and I'm going to call you and say, you said you'd send me an email at such and such a time. I don't see it. What's up? And what are your consequences for not doing that? Then there's different styles of coaching as well, but I'm that coach that's almost kind of drill sergeant-y, sprinkled with a little honey and love. But
there you go.
But I'm that person you call if you want somebody kind of, I'm just going to speak the way I speak in your ass. I'm the one to call.
I love that.
I'm a spiritual life coach on top of that, so I'll pray for you too, or I'll chant or whatever.
All right, so I didn't listen to any of the substance of what you said, but I was just listening for jargon, and I heard absolutely none. So how come more? I'm kidding. I actually listened to what you were saying, but but what can other coaches out there actually learn from how you just described everything that you just did about the differences between those professions and the type of work that you do? It seemed, from my perspective, a lot more. I'll go back to the word accessible. I understood it in a way that made that probably had more of an impact on me, being a prospective client, being somebody who would say to a friend who is in need of something, "Oh, you should go talk to Sabira." And is that something that just comes naturally, or have you consciously avoided using certain language in your work?
No, I haven't actually consciously avoided using language. What I have done consciously is learn to be a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can tell a story, when I can have you see what I'm saying, okay. So I didn't care, like you said, you didn't really hear, you weren't really listening to me, but you were feeling, and I'm going to go to my woo-woo place, David. You were feeling the vibration of.
That's my jargon, by the way.
Right, your woo-woo.
I use it all the time too.
You were feeling. I wanted you to feel what I was saying. I didn't care whether you heard it, but if you feel what I'm saying and there's a connection, I want to override your brain anyway, because typically when I'm coaching somebody, it's the brain that has people stop doing what it is they actually want to do.
Right.
But if I can go, yes, to your if I can talk to your subconscious and talk to your heart and connect with you there. And that happens through stories, through symbols, not through these, techie words that make me sound all, like I'm just so whatever. That's not it. So so that's, I guess, where you can see the difference between someone who went to, again, not to downplay anybody's training, but there is a distinct difference between someone who went to a weekend or did something online or whatever. I've just seen too much of that out there.
Coaching correspondence school.
Yeah.
Coaching correspondence school versus somebody who actually went to school for 4 years and learned how to talk to somebody, how to tell their story. And David, where I do run into walls, that happens too. And so then I go get somebody to support me.
Sure. Sure. And that's something John was saying earlier about coaching each other, or coaches coaching each other. I love this comment here. Who knew drama class in English was the key to coaching?
It is absolutely.
There you go.
And psychology too.
Absolutely. Welcome, Bronwyn. Thanks for joining us as well. So we're talking about, or at least the start of my rant today was about the use of jargon in every profession, but how coaches often fall back on using certain words and certain concepts, perhaps in the wrong place, which is to say that it often happens describing to people in the public, lay people, what they do or how they help, rather than using other language in their initial introduction and initial marketing. And so I wanted to get a sense of how other people are experiencing jargon as a positive or negative. And I'm glad to have Sabira, a certified coach, jump on here and give us a great example of how to focus on things other than the jargon. So I appreciate that.
I had another thought just came to me, David, that I think a lot of times, no matter what profession you're in, I think a lot of times people fall onto jargon because it's safe.
Okay.
That's
right.
True, I think.
You see, it's like I can just go on what I was told in the textbook. This is who I am. In the training that I had to actually delve into the authentic who I really am, because that's the thing that sets me apart from all these other millions. There's a 10,000 million zillion coaches out there.
Yeah. I got to tell you, the authentic you that you're referring to, you're just getting a ton of props, but from an authenticity coach who's lurking here, and I'd love to invite to come and join us on this conversation as well. But yeah, come on in, Bronwyn, if you'd like.
Yeah, it's that authenticity, and so I can speak without having to think about what am I doing? Well, who am I? And I can just just talk.
Hey, lovely to hear that, Sabira.
Thank you.
I am astonished at the abuse of jargon that is misleading. And I agree. I think that I believe that when I hear a lot of jargon being used, it comes from a place of lacking competence, lacking experience, lacking knowledge, and therefore the comfort zone is to fall back into jargon, acronyms. And for me, as soon as I hear it, I have a bullshit barometer. I'm an Aussie, I swear like a trooper. My bullshit barometer goes off.
Yeah.
And then I go into shutdown.
Yep. Well, I'm glad you said that, because for the promo that I put out there for this blab and for the thing that's where we're simulcasting this on Facebook, it was a picture of that scene from Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1, where he's the stand-up philosopher and he talks about, I can't remember, coalescing the vapors of human experience, and B. Arthur's answer to him is something like, "Oh, you're a bullshit artist."
Hello.
That is one of my favorite movies too. I love that.
One of the greatest litmus tests I was taught was to actually, if you could describe what you wanted to describe in pub talk, then you know how to get your message across. But to me, the ultimate gig in coaching is about shutting your mouth and listening.
Right.
Just find me.
Anyway.
Pub talk, like PUB, like going out for drinks. That's great. It's just like what John was saying earlier about talking to a 6-year-old.
Yes.
Hello, but respectfully, I mean, there's talking
There's
to a
that many of them at the
6-year-old,
pub.
and there's talking to a 6-year-old.
Yes, there is.
Right.
But I just noticed that my beautiful buddy, Rock a Life coach, has just popped in here too. Tim, I don't know whether Tim's been in here, but he smashes all of the bullshit right out of the water.
Well, I'll take leave does Tim want to come on and talk? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, Tim, if you're still around, I see.
Rocker Life Coach, does he want to come in? I'll go ahead and exit and let him have a seat.
Yeah.
He just strips it down. And Sabira, lovely to meet you. I haven't been on Blab for a few months, so it's always really nice to meet new people.
Yeah, most definitely. I'll connect with you.
Definitely.
Thanks for jumping on, Sabira. I appreciate it. And Tim, if you're still around, I think I still see you up there.
Still in the room?
Please do join us. We'd love to have you.
Let me finish my food. He's still eating. Fair call.
Oh well. I'm trying to remember. He's down in south of me somewhere. I can't remember, and does lots of on-site coaching somewhere. So anyway, so Bronwyn, what is your business? I know that you have a couple of different titles that you've given yourself here in the Blabosphere. But I love the whole authenticity coach because it seems to work so well for this particular discussion today.
Well, I guess I'd probably like to just call myself a no bullshit, no nonsense person. But people need labels to be able to, decipher whether or not they might want to access my services. Look, essentially everything I do is wrapped around meeting people where they are at and supporting them to unravel whatever their internal or external conflict and tension is. That's generally the type of client that I attract. So someone who can't make sense of the world, whether it's personally or professionally, whether they've got, simple problems that they want some support with or some complex ones. The authenticity tag just seemed to feel more comfortable for my clients because it speaks volumes. But I cross over a whole range. So I do strategic leadership development. I do social media, not a lot, but do a little bit of coaching around that. More so, it's really going into workplaces now and helping people sort their shit out.
So in lieu of jargon, how is it that somebody would initially connect with you? What is it that you're either putting out there that people are saying that makes sense to them or connects with their need, or vice versa? What are people looking for, and you rise to the top when they're searching for something?
Well, I guess you'd have to ask my clients that. See, I don't advertise at all. I don't market. I'm hopeless at marketing, and I rely on this sense of the right people will come to me. And that can sound a bit woo-woo, but man, I've been in my own business for 6 years and I love it. Yep. And I've always got clients. So I guess there's a number of factors. I am active online, so I have a strong presence on LinkedIn and Twitter. I've got a reputation, I suppose. I don't know, to be honest. I really...
That's fine. It's helpful. The cornerstone of what I do is really help people figure out how to communicate what they do and who they help. And this is an example that's probably a little more unusual, right? You've built a business around people knowing you, maybe referrals, but also a presence in a few areas online that people might migrate to you. So
yeah, definitely referrals. Like referrals are really big, and I guess because I'm an old lady now, I'm very particular about who I work with. So I don't say yes to everyone, and people know that. I have a waiting list. I'm not taking on any individual clients this year. So if they didn't access me within the last 2 years, they don't get me one-on-one this year. They can go on a waiting list if they want to, but I'm very, very discerning, and people know that. So I'm obviously not for everybody.
And you have to be that way to a certain extent anyways. So,
Sorry, I missed that, John.
I said you have to be to a certain extent because that's the type of people that you want to work with, the people you want to work with.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a no-nonsense person, so I don't have time to hold people's hands and lovingly sing Kumbaya and wait for them to have an aha moment. I don't like asking 10 pointy coaching questions and waiting for them to arrive at that point of, oh, that's what it is. So my practice is actually a blend of coaching, counselling, mentoring, holistic counselling. So and consulting, of course.
So it's everything that Subira was talking about and more. It sounds like, and I think to some extent you need to have it that way. It looks like Tim has finished up eating and is jumping in here with us. So.
Thanks for letting me.
Giddy up! Hey, buddy.
Hey, Ronnie, it's so good to see you, dear.
Same. It's been so long.
I know. It's just like one of the first people I connected with on Blab that I didn't know before I was on here. And I love her so much, and I don't get to see her as much.
Oh, love you too. Well, I think it's nearly 3 months since I've been on, actually.
Wow.
Well, thereabouts, maybe.
Yeah, I got on. It was October, I think, is when I got on. And I'm surprised at how much it's impacted and grown my business to the point like you were talking about. You're not taking on. I'm getting to the point where I now have to screen the ones I take because I'm getting more people want to work with me than I can take. So I'm like screening them now to make sure you're the right ones for me, and we don't start down a process that you can't finish. So
That's the gold.
Yeah.
So Tim, you, if I remember some of the things that I've heard you talk about in the past, you always sort of lead with the rock and roll thing, right?
Yeah.
But where are you attracting people in? Because clearly that's not jargon that's related to coaching. So,
you know, and for me, it's about being yourself, building a business around you.
Right.
And I use blogging as the main tool that I use to teach people to do it. But it's about telling your story, being you, being authentic, being real. As you said, cut out the BS. All right. I don't want, you know what I mean? I got into this because of Zig Ziglar. I'm not a Zig Ziglar endorsed. I am not Zig. I don't have a picture to say, look at Zig, my buddy, you know, none of that.
There he is.
My story is I used to wash his car.
Oh,
And after I sold my car wash business, I sat down with him and said, Zig, I don't know what to do now. And he told me how I was already a coach. And he shared with me how it was. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds good, Zig. And I went bankrupt and had to go work at Starbucks and had to figure life back out for 5 years. Mm-hmm. No, I needed 5 years of working for Starbucks because I sucked at relating to people. I mean, just being honest, I sucked at relating to people.
I can
wouldn't
associate.
put up with your crap. You can still see it in my coaching, can't you? Yeah. I don't put up with your crap.
That's why we resonate.
Yeah. I had to learn.
I'm like that a little myself.
But while working at Starbucks, I didn't have to be professional looking. I mean, I didn't have to have a suit and tie. I didn't have to worry about my appearance. So I got to be this hippie looking guy.
Yeah.
And when I go to see Zig Ziglar in 2009, and that was when it hit me that we don't live forever because his health was going. And I went, I need to do something with this. Zig was serious about it. I need to do something. And my statement to him was, I'm going to get a haircut and go buy a suit and be a speaker. And Zig said, oh, no, you're not. And that was an eye-opener. It's okay.
Yeah, it's not you.
And
it's okay to be you.
We have to go out there. And some of the stuff, like I was just talking about it on my own blab here a little bit ago, that my eye-opener that I'm meditating over in the shower this morning was, you know, there's some idiots out there right now. And I'm not putting people down, all right? There's some morons, idiots, and we're idolized to them, all right? We can't wait to get their next TV show, their next moronic, stupid move, buy their next album, see their whatever it is. Why are we that way as a society? Mm-hmm. Why is it that those idiots, and I'm not putting them down, but there are some people will sit there and go, idiot.
Hey, I said every day.
I mean, they'll start pointing. When they don't realize, why did we get that to a society? Because that idiot took action, did something, and got results. That's why we're watching them. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be.
I would add in there.
Yeah.
People who behave idiotically. Like we need to separate the person from the behavior. That's always important for me.
It is. Yeah. It is. Because it's not. The statement wasn't about their behavior. It's the fact that I may think they're an idiot. In America, we have different sides on who's running for president right now. And some of us think that she's an idiot. Others think he's an idiot. Some of them think all of them are idiots. Just like this guy. But, and I brought this up earlier too, was the problem in America is now that we have social media and everybody has a voice, is everybody's using the political realm and going, well, my candidate is this, and they point out all the good stuff and compare it to this candidate that they don't like, bad stuff. And they're wondering why we don't see the results. Whereas this guy's over here going, this candidate, pointing out all is good and pointing out this candidate's all bad and goes, why don't you see it? Mm-hmm. And me, who doesn't agree with any of them, going, why can't you all see that you're doing the same game?
Well, you brought up politics, which I think is one of the three things you're not supposed to talk about on Blab. No, I'm just kidding. But that's another.
How much fun is this then?
I don't know how Blab would exist without sex, religion, or politics either. So, but this is another area where I think we see a lot of language and jargon that really can polarize people in a similar way to, I'm sorry, I'm a stage manager by heart, right? So I started out in the theater, and I was in charge of making sure that we were always on schedule. So my job here is bringing it back to where I started our conversation.
Good.
Thank you very much, Tim. And I see that jargon can separate people in many ways, and politics is a perfect example of where that happens, right? And in retrospect, there have been tons of studies that have shown that one politician versus the next politician versus the next politician are actually so much similar in their policy, in how things get carried out, than people in the moment ever recognize.
Jargon has the power to isolate and dominate, as far as I'm concerned. And I've seen it too many times, especially at a bureaucratic level, where acronyms are used, and it instantly separates people out. If you don't understand the acronym, you're behind the 8 ball and you've been left behind. And this arrogant assumption that everyone in a room understands the jargon and understands where the conversation's going has the power to absolutely isolate and dominate. And that's what I find really disrespectful and frustrating, because it doesn't imbibe a deeper sense of trust and a connection, let alone the want to support and follow that person.
I like the phrase you used, arrogant assumption, because it really does separate people who are using certain language from the others they're surrounded by. Yeah, thank you.
It's not always an intentional arrogance, I must say. No. However, it is an arrogance, and that's something I learned in my early years of training in the field of community development, that if we weren't clear and using pub talk with our clients, then it was highly likely that we would lose them, and not as a number, but actually lose their trust and respect in us as support workers. So that really taught me a lot. Because it's easy, like when you think you're in a space where there's shared understanding, it's easier to use the acronyms and to use the jargon. Yeah. But on topic in relation to coaching, I'm done. I'm so over hearing the fluff, the absolute fluff, and the trite.
Like they're doing the fluff. You know why? Because it makes us real ones stand out.
True.
Right.
Well positioned, Tim. That worked nicely. I like that.
All right. I went, and a lot of them I'm watching. Some of the new ones are coming out there, and I'm not putting them down yet. But here's what they're doing: I did all the stuff they're doing right now, and I used to tell people I can actually watch a coach, and I can tell you if they're being coached.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want to do is work with a coach who's not got someone who's coaching him.
So
and it's like a revolving circle.
What is the tell? What is it that you're seeing there?
I can read, and some of them is some of the techniques they use. Some of them is the language they use. Some of them is the mistakes they're making repetitively. I mean, there's a bunch of telltale signs. Unfortunately, I took a spiritual gifts test years ago, and one of them was my spiritual gift was prophecy. Doesn't mean I can see the future, by the way. All right. What prophecy means is I can sit there and read someone by their past actions and watch the repetitive motions they made, and then I can kind of see where they're going with it. That's what prophecy is. I see the black and the white of it. I don't see the fluff.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I have, that vision that I can see, and I can't fully explain it so everyone can understand it. That's why when I see someone that I know that doesn't have a coach, I don't point them out. Not my job to point them out. It's their job to dig their own hole.
Have their own life lessons. I mean, let's face it.
I had to grow through it. They have to grow through it.
Exactly.
If they want my advice, if they want my help, they're going to come and say, "Hey, Tim, how can I work with you?" They're going to come to David. David, how can I work with you? If they don't, and I go force my help onto them, are they going to use that help?
No.
They can't.
They're not.
All right, we're coming up on the top of the hour. I've
got to go. I've got to.
I appreciate you jumping on here and sharing some of your insights. And
so good to see you, Tim.
Nice meeting you, Brian.
Yeah, same, John. I'll go
great
follow
to
you
meet
both.
as well.
Hey, David, thanks for the invite to come in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you for joining us.
Look forward to connecting again. Me and my potty mouth.
I'm glad that we could get the two of you guys together again, and don't be another 3 months off this platform.
No, I won't. I won't.
People.
Thanks, guys.
All right, take care.
See you all.
So yeah, Tim, I think you're a great example of somebody who's out there in the coaching world who is using real accessible language. What Bram was talking about, pub talk, right? To really relate to people. And I'm just in working with my clients who are in the coaching world, trying to figure out, all right, how do I finally make this thing work? I understand, how to help people, or I understand the process that I was taught, when I went through my certification process, but they never learned how to communicate to attract clients effectively, or to pinpoint the problems that they're on a mission to solve. And extracting the jargon from that situation and getting them into a real accessible sort of language that just helps people relate to them is I think something you do so beautifully.
Thank you. I'm honored that you see that in talking with me, and really I'm here to add value to help you. All right, and help those people follow you because they're following you for a reason. And I just got done doing a blab where I talk about that. I come into every one of these things because I realize as a coach, while everybody does need a coach, everybody's not ready to hire a coach. And just because they need a coach doesn't mean they need this coach.
Sure.
Right.
And if I don't have a network of other coaches that I can refer them to, I'm just a money taker. Mm-hmm. And I don't ever want to be accused of being a money taker. I want to be someone who and I have the money I need, and I will make more money as I go along. Why? Because I'm going to sit here and promote you when you're the better deal than me.
Neither of us are coaches, but we appreciate the attention that you bring to us. So
I don't even play one on TV.
We're on blast. So. Anyway, I do appreciate you hopping in here and sharing your insight and making people aware of our conversation as well. And I'm going to be a diligent host and wrap things up because I always promise 30 to 40 minutes, and I've exceeded that already. So thank you so much for coming in and sharing your insight, and I'll hope to encounter you again soon.
All right. Talk to you later, guys.
Nice to meet you, Tim.
Bye-bye.
All right, John. I think we're going to wrap up here too. Thank you as always for
you're welcome.
coming on and hanging out.
Here.
I learned a ton today, so I'm glad we got those guys in here. And
it's a great topic.
Yeah. And I'm gonna try to find some other ones that I'm picking up on from the coaches that I'm working with on a regular basis to see where else we can bring this conversation as well. So. We do this every week over at thepowerofreach.com, which is on Facebook. It's usually a Google Hangout, but I'm glad that we jumped into a Blab today because it brought us in lots of directions that I wouldn't have taken us otherwise. So
and a few new faces.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always good.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna get off the record here and sign on out.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.